Tonight's speaker, Richard, I saw in Wales at the Choose Truth gathering, and as I said, done a brilliant talk. He's got off his arse, he's gone over to Bosnia, he's done 2 years of visiting there, and I think he's going to try and sell it to you that you too can get on a plane, you go and dig on a pyramid and have some food and watch the sunset and have a smoke and have a drink, and it sounds idyllic to me. So I'm going to leave Richard to do the talk. As I said, we respect him, turn phones off, 40 to 45 minutes, and we'll ask questions at set points rather than randomly. If you feel your arm rising, just ignore it. Yeah. So this is Richard on Bosnian pyramids. Thank you very much.
Cheers for coming, guys. So this is I think this is the 3rd time I've spoken in front of people, so if I get a little bit nervous, bear with me. Okay, so I studied geology at the University of Leeds, and in my 2nd year at university I became interested in alternative ideas, alternative theories regarding primarily the Egyptian pyramids. And in my 3rd year I took myself to Giza, and I was basically, with the books that I'd read, I wanted to see for myself if what they were saying was correct. Having my geological skills, I was able to confirm a lot of the things that were spoken about. For instance, the difference in the erosional rates between the blocks that were covered and weren't, so there's a change in the age. And when I got back from that trip, I was randomly Googling something, I can't remember what it was, and I came across the Bosnian pyramids, and I was like, oh, pyramids in Bosnia. So I clicked on Google Images to have a look at it, and immediately there was no doubt in my mind that this hill that they claim it to be is artificial and it is a pyramid. But I had a lot of questions, so I spent about an hour and a half writing an email to Dr. Samir Osmanagic. He's the doctor who discovered it in 2005. And so I wrote this email for about an hour and a half. Lots of questions: how does it fit into ancient world history, so forth. And he just sent me back an email saying, oh, it's probably easier if you just come for yourself. So, I was having a lot of synchronicities at the time, so I literally just went on the internet and booked my flight, and the rest is history, so to speak. Okay, so the first image I want to show you, this is the Pyramid of the Moon at Teotihuacan, prior to excavation. As you can see, it's not angular, it has trees and bushes growing on it. This isn't unusual. All the pyramids in South America looked similar to this before they were excavated. And there's hundreds, if not thousands, of pyramids in the Amazon rainforest that are still buried. And this is what it looks like, the same pyramid after excavation. This is modern day. So the Bosnian Valley of the Pyramids, it's based around a town called Visoko, which is about 25 kilometres northwest of Sarajevo, the capital. And it's quite a small town. Surrounding the town are at least 5 large pyramidal structures. There's a total of 9 potential structures in the area. But for this talk, we'll focus on these structures here. And you have the main pyramid, which is the Pyramid of the Sun. This is the one, if you've seen it on the internet, you're probably familiar with. It's the one with the triangular northern face. Opposite, on the other side, is the middle-sized pyramid, the Pyramid of the Moon. And then there's a crescent moon-shaped structure, which is called Temple of Mother Earth. It's not strictly a pyramid, but it has 2 pyramidal faces. Very unusually shaped structure. Next, behind the Pyramid of the Sun, is the Pyramid of Love. And far back you have the smallest of the pyramids, which is the Pyramid of the Dragon. Okay, so first we'll talk about the Pyramid of the Sun. This is the tallest of the pyramids, possibly the tallest pyramid in the world so far discovered. Well, it is the tallest pyramid in the world so far discovered. At least 220 metres in height. We haven't been able to pinpoint the base of it yet because we haven't excavated, so it could potentially be as much as 270 to 280 metres tall. You can see from this picture that the west side, is it's not flat, and this is because it's built into the side of a natural hill formation. And this is one thing very particular about the Bosnian pyramids. They are not like any other pyramid in the world. They are completely unique structures. And what we find is all three of the largest pyramids don't stand alone. They have a access plateau, we call it, which leads to about the top 2/3 of each of the pyramids. This pyramid is, as well as being the tallest in the world, if we compare it to the Pyramid of Giza, which is 147 metres, it's 1/3 taller. But actually, volume-wise, it's a total 39 times bigger than the Pyramid of Giza, because it's not a flat square base, it's actually rectangular. So volume, we're looking at least 2,300 million tonnes of material. This is a photograph from the Axos Plateau to the peak of the pyramid. And this plateau is also artificial, constructed from concrete and clay blocks. So when Dr. Samir originally was in Visoko and discovered the Pyramid of the Sun, when he started his scientific investigations, the first thing in which he did was he used satellite thermal imagery. And he was able to identify the structures because of their different heat signature compared to surrounding hills. And the reason for this is simply because pyramids have got hollow spaces inside, so they heat up quickly because of the hollow space. And what he did was he took this thermal anomaly, and he also plugged in the fact that he wanted to look for hills with at least 2 pyramidal faces, and 9 structures came up around Visoko. Here we have an image of satellite topography analysis showing the sides. So, since excavating started in 2005, a lot of the critics have said, well, if it's a real pyramid, why don't you start at the top? That would be the most sensible place to excavate. You could excavate all 4 corners and it would be pretty obvious. Well, the reason for that is our beloved European Union, because at the top of this pyramid there is a medieval fort, a ruined medieval fort. And the European Union has decided to put a site of special scientific interest on this fort, which means that no one is allowed to dig below 2/3 the top of the pyramid, where all the interesting things are. So these areas located in red are the excavation sites so far. For the last 2 years we've been concentrating on the lower left-hand side. This is one of the excavation sites, I said, the lower left-hand side. You can see here, this is the surface of the pyramid. It's not like you'd expect from Giza. In fact, the surface of this pyramid is covered in concrete. And what you can see here is one of the single layers of concrete. Close up. Each layer is about 1 metre, 1.5 metres thick. In between each block is 15 centimetres of clay. And this goes on for 5 layers of 1 metre thick concrete. The outer shell, I think, has a total mass of 60 million tonnes. That's estimated. One of the reasons why they perhaps used clay for construction of this pyramid was because clay is great for thermal expansion and contraction in changing temperatures, so you wouldn't get cracks. Also, if there's any tectonic activity, each layer of concrete can move relative to each other, sliding back and forth with earthquakes, seismic waves. So in 2006, Dr. Samir invited some geophysicists from Belgrade and a German university, and they used seismic, well here they're using georadar, and they were able to detect clearly man-made hollow spaces under the surface, and we marked these off. There are 44 areas near to the surface which have been indicated to be hollow passageways. The georadar can only penetrate, I think, for this model, maybe 6 to 10 metres at the most. And this is where they mark them out here, so we can virtually walk the path of the tunnels. Another piece of high-tech evidence that was gathered is satellite radar screening. Here you can see this is the peak of the pyramid, and these are several of the passages running around and underneath the structure. As well as the georadar, seismic refraction, reflection, were also used. So we have several different scientific methods to gather the same results, and this is important that we can repeat the results. This was one of the most important geophysical investigations. This Professor Oleg Kavroshkin, he's investigated the pyramids of Giza with his techniques, and with his results in Bosnia using these same pieces of technology, he was able to confirm that the Bosnian signatures are exactly the same as the Egyptian pyramids. So the concrete on the outside, the skeptics will say it's just a natural rock composition conglomerate deposited in the Miocene. This Miocene is 4 million years old. We need to remember this date because we have evidence collected which disputes this. So it was investigated, the material, at 6 different institutions, and they all came back with the same conclusions. Dr. Joseph Davidovits, this is his image that he created. He's the gentleman who put forth the theory that the Egyptian pyramid blocks were actually manufactured from some kind of poured concrete material. And he's come to the same conclusion that this material cannot in any way whatsoever be natural. It is a man-made geopolymer. Here you can see the same excavation site. This is a group of Malaysian PhD archaeology students, and they were here for Bosnia for 6 weeks last year. In fact, one of their professors from the university believes in the project so much, he bought a big chunk of the Pyramid of the Moon for himself. So, what is the concrete made from? Well, nearby there is a local natural conglomerate, and we will discuss this later because it's an important site. But basically what they've done is they've taken old riverbed stones which have been deposited by various flows of rivers, and they're small rounded pebbles, and they've been mixed with calcium carbonate and clay. Now the clay which has been mixed with it has been analysed to have been found to have been heated up to temperatures exceeding 500 degrees. And the reason why they do this is because when clay is heated to that temperature, its properties change and it becomes more of an adhesive. And so this binds the material, as well as the calcium carbonate. It creates a very strong binding material. So, from what I've gathered, is that the sections of concrete were poured in maybe several tons worth, talking maybe 7, 8, 9 tons each. And they'd pour one section, they'd allow it to set, and then they would pour this calcite, liquid calcite material in between, and then pour another layer on. And the reason why I see this is because when you make a sandwich and you've got some mayonnaise, and you put 2 slices of bread together, you get those gloops coming from dripping down the side of the bread. And this is exactly what you can observe along the lines where this crystalline material is found. Once it was a liquid, it was squeezed together by the 2 blocks, and then it came out to the top. This is just on the right hand side of the other previous sonders that were excavated. Again, concrete blocks, which you can see here that the sections, when they were poured, they were in some kind of mould, and you can see completely flat face on one side. On the top, because there wasn't anything pushing the material down, it was all bumpy and raised. But on this side, completely flat. And it's important to note this because a conglomerate, because it's made up of mixed compositions of stones, each stone has different erosion rates. So if this was a natural deposit, you'd get some stones eroding quicker than other ones, and it wouldn't be this perfectly flat rock, especially if they're saying it's a 4 million old deposit. This is the layer below the one you've just seen, and again you've seen exactly the same thing, a flat face on the blocks, which just wouldn't be found in a conglomerate such as these. See the slide. So when these concrete samples were analysed, not only did they confirm that it was concrete, but in actual fact it's a higher quality concrete than anything we can make today. They did stress tests and found it to be as much as 5 times stronger than the best quality concrete we can make today. Now, when we take our best quality concrete, it will last no more than 8,000 years before it breaks down into its constituent parts. Whereas these pyramids, we'll get onto the dating in a moment, far surpass 8,000 years, and yet this concrete is still managing to retain as much strength as 5 times more than our concrete. So another piece of evidence that has been found is the vegetation on the pyramid. And one botanist, biologist came, sorry, just losing concentration. The biologist who came identified that the species on the pyramid are completely different from the surrounding plants. It's more of a Mediterranean climate on the pyramids, and the reason for this is because of the thermal anomaly of the hills. Because they've got hollow spaces, they warm up quicker, and so there is a 5-degree warmer climate on each of the pyramids. Another interesting observation is that the trees growing on the pyramid, if you take the same species of tree and see it growing in a naturally deposited conglomerate, these tree roots can penetrate as much as 20 to 25 metres down through the ground. Whereas the trees on the pyramid of the sun, once they hit that concrete layer, they start growing horizontally. They cannot penetrate the concrete because it is so strong. So, ages of the pyramid. Well, unfortunately, we cannot conclusively age the pyramids yet. There isn't enough physical evidence for us to get a conclusive age. But we can give us a ballpark figure. And one of these pieces of evidence we do use is the pedological study on the soil deposition. We can calculate how long it would take soil to build up on the pyramid from natural processes. And they estimated an age of 12 to 15,000 years. So this doesn't tell us when the pyramids were built, but what it does do is give us an age of possibly when the pyramids were allowed to be taken over by nature and they were disused, when they were forgotten. Another interesting anomaly is surface water runoff. Every hill, when it rains, the water has to get down to the bottom, and so it will leave streams, brooks, that kind of thing, where the water is running down. In the centre you have the Pyramid of the Sun, and either side you have natural hills that have pyramidal faces. And what you'll see is the surface water tracked and mapped out. And you can see that the pyramidal sides on both of the two, on the left and right, have surface water runoff. But the Pyramid of the Sun on the undamaged sides has no surface water whatsoever. It seems that the structure of the pyramid is drawing the water in towards its centre, or somewhere inside the pyramid, and it's being channeled away. We'll get onto that in a moment. In fact, we'll get onto it here. So this is one of the excavations this year on Pyramid of the Sun, and what we found was these channels within the clay layers above the concrete, and you can see this here. So we believe this is what is causing the fact that there's no surface water runoff. They've purposely developed a water system which draws the water from the surface and down set routes. Okay. Oh, is there any questions so far, by the way?
So you've got those, the water running, is there somewhere you can see where the water's going?
Yes.
You're going to get there, aren't you?
Has this concrete been reproduced today?
We cannot manufacture this concrete. The best concrete we can make is not nowhere near as strong.
It seems funny, sort of heating up clay. You heat the clay, get pottery, and then what would you do? I mean, how would you get that from?
Well, when you're heating clay up, I don't think you're heating it up to the temperature we're talking about here. It's not as hot as 500 degrees centigrade. But Joseph Davidovits is in the process of trying to reproduce the concrete he found at the Pyramid of Giza, and he hasn't had any success yet. He's got close, but he hasn't been able to manufacture it exactly. So I don't think we would be able, currently we wouldn't be able to either with this new concrete.
And what sort of, how do they tell that it's been heated up to 500 degrees?
Okay, when you take a thin section of a mineral, you can see how it's been metamorphosed by heat, by the way the minerals are shaped. And you can see the borders, and it can tell you how hot the material has been heated up to. Okay, so here you see the Pyramid of the Sun, Moon, Dragon. And what this forms is an almost perfect equilateral triangle. There's about 2% error between the different sides. It's pretty close. And each pyramid is 2.2 kilometers apart from each other. Another interesting thing about these specific alignments of the pyramids, if you were to stand at the second highest peak behind the Pyramid of the Sun and look in a straight line over that peak, that line would take you to an entrance to the underground tunnel network running underneath the Bosnian Valley of the Pyramids. We call KTK tunnels. Also, another straight line from the Temple of Mother Earth intersect through the Sun-Moon intersect, that line will take you exactly to the same place. If you stand on the highest peak in the area and look over the second highest peak, that straight line will take you to the barycenter of the Pyramid of the Sun, of the triangle. Sorry. The highest points of the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Love, and the Temple of Mother Earth are all on the straight line. And if you take the distance between the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of Love, it is 1/3 of that line's length. This is some more evidence we've gathered to understand the site and the locations of the objects. This was helped to be produced by Tony from Templar Mechanics, who does sacred geometry. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that website. And what he did was he highlighted all the areas of natural highs in topography. These ones highlighted are just the important ones we're dealing with. But he tried to get alignments between them all, and he was able to identify these places that had a very interesting alignment. You see here the two axes between the lines. I must stress that this map is just a section of a much larger map. You see these points as spot heights here, but there's a lot more also aligned to these lines off the picture. So if you connect the 2 points here, this is Setnitsa and Sessa Hill, it produces a northeast-southwest axis, which also creates the baseline for a triangular shape. Now this is the starting point for sacred geometry, because the base angle of this triangle is 51.5 degrees, which is exactly the same as the Great Pyramid of Giza's base angle. Also, the northwest-southeast line creates the midpoint line there. These circles, very important. This is the Earth to Moon ratio here. If you enclose in the first circle the two base points, and you create a larger circle to take the peak of the triangle, the outside circle is the center point for, if you take the distance between the outside circle and the inside circle, that's the radius for the circumference of the Moon compared to the Earth, which is the inner circle.
What?
And